When you first move to the UK as a dependent, it can be quite challenging, especially if you don't have a job. In your home country, you might have had a job that you absolutely loved, that paid you well, and that matched your career goals. But then you probably got the opportunity to move to the UK as a dependent, which meant a better life for you and your family, but that also meant sacrifices on your part on giving up the job you love. Well, I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be a sacrifice. You can work in the UK continuing where you left off, or you can use this as a brand new opportunity to do pretty much whatever you wanted to always do and still make money in the process. And how much you earn honestly depends on how much you're willing to hustle and what your ambitions are, because there's really nothing stopping you here. Over the past few weeks, a bunch of you have been asking me on what you should do to find jobs as a dependent in the UK and how dependents should go about looking for jobs in the first place, which is why I'm making this video today, which obviously means that if you have any questions or you want knowledge or information on any particular topics, you want me to make a video on it, please leave that in the comment section below. With that, I'm Ashika and let's dive in. Now let's quickly go over who dependents are, because a bunch of you keep asking me if you can bring your family members along, your parents or anybody else. Not really, you are a dependent, and the only dependents that qualify to move to the UK as dependents are spouses or partners and children. Now, you're usually a dependent if the primary applicant has been applying for a visa and you get to come along with them to the UK as a dependent on their visa. It's mostly only long-term visas that allow for dependents. Most short-term visas don't allow dependents to come along to the UK. Of course, there are exceptions here and there. Now, it's important for you to know that dependents can apply for their visa along with the lead of the primary applicant, or they can apply for it at a later point in time. But irrespective of when you applied for it, as a dependent, your visa is valid for as long as the primary applicant's visa is valid. So even if you applied later, your visa will expire when theirs does. So for instance, if the lead applicant's visa is due to expire on the 25th of February 2026, irrespective of when you applied as an applicant, even if you apply in 2025, your visa will still expire on 25th December 2026. Now, as a dependent, your right to work should be confirmed in the visa letter that you get home. So it should be written out there, and it should also be written on your BRP, including the length of your visa. Please remember to check this and make sure all the information is accurate, because sometimes mistakes do happen. The best part about dependent visas is there are almost no restrictions, very few restrictions on working. So dependents can choose to work wherever they want to work in the UK, which is really great because it then means you have two incomes in the household. And keeping in mind the state of affairs in the UK, which is the cost of living and inflation, I think it's a brilliant opportunity for you to make that extra money so you can save more. So if you can work as a dependent, I highly recommend you do. Now, most employers will check your right to work, but it's a rather easy and straightforward process. They're just covering their backs and making sure all the legal requirements have been taken care of. But more often than not, employers are extremely happy to hire dependents in the UK because it means that they don't have to take care of any visa requirements. So just plain based on your merit, you can get a job because there's no visa restrictions that are blocking you from getting a job in the UK. Now, in almost all cases, dependents can work in the UK with very few restrictions, which are: you can't be a professional sports person, and this includes being a sports coach. Dependents can do any other type of work, including voluntary work and being self-employed. Now, of course, sometimes there are certain employers who don't want to hire people who are on a dependent visa because their concern is that if you are on a dependent visa, you might leave the country at some point. And in a lot of cases, employers are looking for employees who can stay for longer durations. So to avoid all of these situations, it's really good to always manage upfront that you are on a dependent visa. So in case the employer has any challenges in their mind, they can reject you so that you can move on, rather than getting into a job, then they find out and then it gets uncomfortable, ugly. So avoid that situation. When you apply for a job, always let them know that you are on a dependent visa. Now, before I move ahead, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to do it. Hit the subscribe button now and click on the bell icon for notifications. Now, in one of my previous videos, I had covered a lot of careers that you can consider as a dependent in the UK, especially part-time gigs if you're looking to make that extra cash. So I'm not going to cover any of those today. I will leave a link to that video at the end of this video and also in the description below if you want to see it at your own leisure. Today, we're specifically talking about jobs not covered in that video and jobs that require no skills first, and then we'll come to skilled jobs. Now, if you're an open book and you don't know where to start from when you're looking for unskilled jobs, something very different from what you've been doing in the past, take a look at this. This gives you an idea of how much each profession earns approximately. I'll link this in the description where you can use the drop down to see exactly how much you can expect to earn based on the career you pick. You can check out a bunch of these unskilled jobs to see how much they pay, to see what the best options are for you. Let's discuss some of them. The first is the job for a teaching assistant. And the great part about this job is that it doesn't really require you to have any skills from your past jobs. So it's an unskilled job, but it comes with some pretty great options. If you're a dependent and you're moving to the UK and you have children and you plan on having children, this is a really great opportunity for you to consider, because then you can time your job along with your kids' hours. So while they're at school, you're working and you're there when they get back home, or you can pick them home and go back. So you don't really have to discuss the timings you're available with your employer because it matches those of your kids. Speaking of money, the national average salary for a teaching assistant in the UK is £68.99 a day. As a teaching assistant, you would help the teacher deliver the curriculum to the class, and you would provide extra support to students in small groups or one-on-one sessions, and provide additional supervision to ensure class discipline. While you don't need a degree, graduates are often preferred over someone who doesn't have a graduate degree. But something to remember is you should have absolutely great communication skills, and you should like children to begin with. You'll also have to go through a background check, and you may receive some training, especially if you intend to work with children with special needs. Now, the second one is for a care worker. Last year, a record number of you wrote into me asking how to get care worker jobs in the UK. And while there were still companies that were offering sponsorship last year, it has kind of trickled down right now, because right now most care homes are looking for people who are already in the UK. So the good thing is that if you're already in the UK, considering that the company doesn't need to provide you with a visa, it increases your chances of landing this job. The national average salary is £9.9 per hour. A caregiver travels to patients' homes and helps them perform essential daily tasks. This might include assisting them with washing, getting ready, dressed, and eating. A caregiver can also organize medication, perform light housework, and do some shopping when required. Prior experience is always helpful, but it's not required for entry-level roles. Some employers, however, might require you to have a driver's license with your own vehicle for this job. Another career for you to consider is that of a private chef. Now, obviously, this is a lot more popular in cities, especially London, rather than small towns, so that's something you will have to keep in mind. If you are coming from India or a country like India, this is a concept you're probably already familiar with, because it's very common for people to have chefs or cooks come and cook either on a daily basis or when there's a big occasion coming up. Not so popular in the UK, but it is catching up quite a bit, and the demand seems to be increasing. Many families in the UK hire chefs or cooks to come cook on a daily basis or on a weekly basis just to save time, especially if both members of the family are working. I actually have friends who live in Wimbledon, or very close to Wimbledon, who actually have a cook who comes home and cooks every single day, and from what they know, she does it in a bunch of other houses in their area. So it's an absolutely great option for you to consider. The national average salary for chefs in the UK is £23,784, but private chefs can earn up to £42,842. Another career you can consider is that of customer service. Now, a lot of people would not want to do customer service because either they have no experience, or it's not related in any way to the job that they've done in the past, or not related to the job they plan on doing in the future in the UK. Well, the good news is that in case you're struggling to find a job in the UK, this is something you can consider in the meantime, because you can actually use it very smartly if you think about it. Ideally, pick a customer service role in the industry or the career path that you want to eventually do in the UK, and then you can use it in your benefit by saying that you now understand the customer problems that consumers face in this entire segment that you're already working in, and you can also use it as slightly relevant experience and make sure you mention this on your CV and on LinkedIn, so it can actually be counted as relevant experience. Customer service executives earn £23,064 per annum, and customer service managers can earn up to £32,861 per annum. Now, let's talk about skilled jobs. If you are coming from your home country where you spent a considerable number of years working in a particular career path and you have a very clear goal in your mind, you have a career path in your mind and you don't want to change, there are a couple of things that you should keep in mind. And this is especially in cases where you are highly skilled and you obviously don't want to start from scratch in some other role. The first thing is you don't need a visa to work in any of these jobs because you already have the right to work. So technically, the world is your oyster. The second thing you need to remember is that you don't have to wait to come to the UK to start looking for jobs. As soon as you get your visa letter in your home country, start applying for jobs immediately because you now have the right to work. So you don't have to wait to come to the UK. And also, as soon as you get your visa letter, remember to update your CV and update on LinkedIn and mention that you are in the UK. The third thing, now, based on the nature of your job, you might have to do some upskilling to adjust to jobs in the UK. Let me give you an example. I've worked in marketing my whole life, but my marketing experience has been limited to an Indian audience. The audience in the UK is not necessarily the same, which means that I now need to learn about the audience in the UK before I apply for a job. Now, this could come in multiple ways. Either you spend a lot of time doing in-depth research, or what you can do is take up some courses to make sure that you are on the same level as marketers in the UK, or what you can do is opt for some certifications. Now, this might also hold good for finance roles, for HR roles, for law roles, for teaching roles, because a lot of them are specific to the country that you belong to. So do remember to do some digging around on what the requirements are for your role. And remember that whenever you do whatever you do, your certification or your courses, whatever it is, mention it on your CV and mention it on LinkedIn. Now, once you've nailed this down, the process is pretty much the same as applying for any job in your home country as well. You look on all the job portals, which is Indeed, LinkedIn, Reed, CV Library, all of them, gov.uk, and you make sure you upload your CV everywhere. You also check the career pages of certain brands that you're interested in. If you have friends here, ask them to refer you in the companies that they worked in. Network on LinkedIn. Considering you're already in the UK, it drastically increases your chances of landing that job. But of course, it's only going to work as long as you are applying the right way. You are mentioning all the right keywords on your CVs. And you're applying for jobs in an appropriate manner and quickly, which is something I've covered in all my previous videos. So go check a video on how to land jobs in the UK and it should give you in-depth guidance. See, that's all you need to know to get started to finding jobs as a dependent in the UK. It's not going to be difficult. So remove that mindset from your mind that you're going to have to struggle. You're not going to have to struggle as long as you apply the right way. Now, if you'd like to know the other jobs that dependents can apply for in the UK, and especially ones that pay relatively well, I suggest you watch this video.